One manifestation of this was the creation of institutions to, quote-unquote, help people with disabilities. Now, one figure who represents this evangelical zeal was the physician Samuel Gridley Howe. And he believed that educating people with disabilities would improve both the individual person and society as a whole, since he argued there was an obligation to educate all people. Though we should note that in the 19th century, all typically meant white. Samuel Gridley Howe helped found schools for young people who were blind and deaf and developmentally disabled. One such institution was the Perkins School for the Blind in 1829, which later educated Helen Keller, one of the most famous early disability advocates. And before her, it also had educated her teacher, Anne Sullivan. Another example of this movement was Dorothea Dix, who, fueled by her religious zeal, visited such institutions as part of the expression of her faith. She was horrified to see people left in cages, held in dungeon-like cellars or prison-like cells, kept in chains, naked, beaten with rods, or lashed into obedience. Her horror prompted her to become an advocate for better treatment and better funding, speaking both to the state legislature in Massachusetts and to the U.S. Congress. Like Samuel Gridley Howe, she expressed optimism at the potential of the institution to do good, and she believed that the expansion of the asylum system and increased funding for it were the best solutions to help those in their care. The second impetus for the emergence and proliferation of the asylum was scientific, stemming from the Enlightenment culture of the 18th century and continuing into the 19th century, and this promoted confidence in the power of science to accurately explain the world and in its ability to assert human power over nature for the improvement of the nation or the common good, or whichever group had the power in their hands. Thus, the institutions were controlled by a newly emerging medical establishment. The institutions were led by medical officials who today we'd refer to as psychiatrists, but this field was just emerging. And then they were called alienists, expressing the belief that there was an alienation between body and mind in their patients that needed to be corrected. In fact, the directors of these institutions created an organization with the not-so-flowing name of the Association of Medical Superintendents of American Institutions for the Insane, which was founded in 1844. And this was the precursor of today's American Psychiatric Association. Thus, we see that in the 19th century, disability was seen as a deviance and a problem that required medical treatment. And this is the birth of the medical model of defining disability, which would become the most common mode of defining disability as mental and physical deficit and medical problem. And these two forces then, of science on the one hand and religion on the other, were not in opposition. They were, in fact, symbiotically intertwined in the United States in this period and in the emergence of the asylum.